Between 1937 and 1938, U.S. Marine officer Evans Carlson observed the communist-led 8th Army in its resistance against Japanese aggression. As a military officer, what kind of tactics would have caught his attention?
One of the things that he learned in this process was ways to use weaknesses as strength. 8th Root Army could not possibly stand up to the Japanese in traditional positional warfare where you're just fighting face to face. The Japanese had better weapons, they had far better equipment, they had all of these resources that the communists didn't have. But the communists were able to break into small groups, they were able to conduct ambushes, they were able to attack weak points.
The communists in fact turned to a different kind of warfare, guerrilla warfare. And they not just applied, but adapted. In Carlson's book, The Chinese Army, he explained his tactics in detail. The success of this style of warfare depends in large measure on the possession by the guerrilla forces of superior information regarding the enemy's strength and movements. Pitched battles with strong enemy forces are avoided. When a strong Japanese column invades a certain area, the guerrilla forces move to the sides of the line of advance, attack the flanks and rear of the enemy, and cut his line of communication. At night, the camps of the enemy are subjected to constant rapier-like thrusts, designed to disturb his rest and wear him out. Food is removed from the countryside ahead of his advance. In a letter to Roosevelt, Carlson compared the 8th Root Army adopting guerrilla tactics to be an eel and a swarm of hornets harassing an elephant. I can well believe the Japanese officer who remarked in his diary, "The 8th Root Army gives me a headache," he wrote.
But what made communist guerrilla warfare truly distinct was not just the tactics, it was also the deep reliance on people.
As Mao Zedong famously said, guerrilla warfare cannot for a moment be separated from the masses. This is the most fundamental principle. From the very outset of the war, the Communist Party has insisted on mobilizing the people and relying on the people.
One of the things about the Communist Army that Carlson was so incredibly impressed by was what a good job they were doing of cultivating loyalty from ordinary people. When he was traveling through the rear base areas, what he saw was how the Communist Army was organizing these people, teaching them nationalism, teaching them patriotism, organizing them into support units of partisans and militias. Even if there were peasants who they didn't have, guns or anything like that, maybe they just had spears, and they could still relay intelligence about where the Japanese were. They could still help wounded soldiers get to a hospital. There are all kinds of ways that they could provide information.
Carlson's biography, The Big Yankee, recalls a remark from an 8th Root Army soldier. Comrade Peng Dehuai, our great guerrilla leader, once said that important as tactics are, we could not exist if the majority of the people did not support us. They are our eyes and ears. They hide us and feed us. We are nothing but their fists.
The CPC's People's War was vitally important for two reasons. First, it brought effective organization and tactics to those who were resisting, especially behind the enemy lines. Second, while these lessons demonstrated the value of the CPC to the masses and were later mobilized successfully during China's Civil War, they also contributed significantly to China's development as a modern nation. Now, we must keep in mind that the lack of development had left China vulnerable to foreign aggression. So in this respect, we have to acknowledge the CPC succeeded where its predecessors, the Qing and the Nationalists, had failed, precisely because it mobilized the masses, precisely because it saw the strategic necessity and social justice associated with turning peasants into citizens and directly linking their fate with those of the nation.
As his observations deepened, Carlson began doing something highly unusual.
While he's traveling with the 8th Root Army patrols, he really develops an absolutely profound sympathy for the Chinese people. in the face of this horrific Japanese invasion. And so as he's moving through the different base areas, he's giving speeches, sometimes to thousands, sometimes, in one case at least, to 10,000 people listening, Chinese people listening, telling them your resistance is admirable, that all sort of good, kindly Americans are deeply sympathetic to your cause and they believe in you.
Carlson was also unsparing in his praise of Chinese communists, calling them the most progressive democratic force in China.
And this is something that got him into real trouble in the Marine Corps. So his superior officer tells him to stop talking to Chinese audiences and stop talking to reporters. And that's the point where he quits the Marines.
As the first US military observer embedded with the Chinese Communist forces, Carlson saw people fighting not just with weapons, but with conviction. A party committed not to privilege, but to the people, and a country not yet strong, but full of promise.